Hello, and welcome to the Three Links Oddcast, your podcast for all things having to do with Odd Fellowship. And now, here are your hosts. Welcome, everyone, to another great episode of the Three Links Oddcast, brought to you by Pig and Pug Bath Stuff. Remember, if you like bathing, so do they, and they make things that make it better to bathe. Nice soaps, bath bombs, other wonderful items like that. Pig and a Pug. Look them up on Etsy and Facebook. I'm your host, Toby Hansen.
I'm your co-host, Ainsley Heilich, and we are here tonight with our special guest host, Christopher McHale.
It is nice to be called special. It is a pleasure to be here. Toby, would you like to introduce our guest?
I would love to. Thank you very much. And thank you for joining us again, Chris. We have a very special guest for this episode, and that is Sister Stacy Thomason, who comes to us from Gold Hill Lodge number 129, and that's in the Grand Jurisdiction of Oregon. Welcome, Sister Stacy.
Well, thank you. Glad to be here.
It's great to have you here. And to start out, why don't you give us a little bit of an OddFellows biographical sketch? How you found your way to Odd Fellowship, how long you've been a member, what kind of stuff you like to do with your lodge. Sort of fill in the background for our listeners.
I discovered OddFellows. A couple ladies were auctioning quilts in front of the grocery store. And one of them, instant friends. And I was intrigued by the secrecy of it, you know, and I've been a member since April of 2019, and my husband joined a few months later. We did the cave ceremony in Wairika, and what else could I say? We were happy to find something we could do together.
Well, that's excellent, and we certainly enjoy having you in the order. Now, the first question, for our listeners to understand why what you're doing is so important for your lodge, tell us about, first of all, a little bit about the town of Gold Hill, how big or how small it is, where it is relative to other things that people might know about, and kind of what the state of the lodge was when you joined.
Boy, the city's not very large, and it's almost landlocked. It's just this little bitty city and a whole lot of countryside. It's centrally located between Grants Pass and Medford. So if you live in Gold Hill, you can reach either city really well. What else can I tell you about it? Yeah, it's not very big. We have, just the right amount of things to make it a city. So
there is your claim to fame.
What's that?
That is the Oregon Vortex.
Oh, the Vortex. That's something you got to do at least once. It was featured in the Sam and Max video game. If you ever get to play that game a long time ago, it's like a little cartoon. And I was like, I got to do that at least once. So everything's, things are taller or shorter, and in the little building, and things roll downhill when they should be rolling uphill. It's really unique.
It's a classic kind of American roadside attraction for those who've never been there. I have been there. I went there when I was, I think, 18 years old. My grandfather and I took a trip down to Sacramento. And of course, we had to stop on the way back and visit the mystery spot, the Oregon Vortex. Woo, spooky. And it's right there in Gold Hill.
Yeah, yes, it is.
So your lodge, tell us a little bit about the state of your lodge. Big lodge, small lodge, is it active? How many people, what's the building like? Kind of what's your situation?
I think we have 17 active members. A couple of them live out of town, but they're still members. Some of them are seniors and they're staying home because of COVID. I like to say we're an even split between 50-year-olds and 70-year-olds. So a lot of the 50-something-year-olds are still there, and the 70-year-olds are staying home right now. It's what I call the historic ballroom. We have one of the brick buildings, We had water damage, and we've recovered a lot from that. I mean, before I ever got there, they laid the new floor, and they took out all the rotten plywood and paneling and stuff. But It looked like a construction zone when I got there. So because of the plywood floors, we couldn't sweep, we couldn't mop. And I said, let's stop looking like it's a construction zone. So we painted the floors. We started covering up the 2x4s and, started putting the walls back together, so we look more put together. And then, of course, you got to have your lodge pride. So we started adding, the pretties back in, that we're missing. So
that is an incredibly important thing. I'm glad you mentioned that, because you have to have your lodge pride. If your lodge looks like, and it's important to the community will perceive that. If it looks welcoming, if it looks like it's a place that people want to go, people will want to go there. But if you have a dingy lodge on a back street that has been bypassed by the freeway and nobody goes there anymore, and it's only used twice a month on Tuesday afternoons when 6 elderly men shuffle into the building and complain for an hour and a half, it is much harder to make that attractive to new people to come in and invest something in that. So that is just a wonderful comment and a wonderful way to look at what you've done. And speaking of what you have done, since you joined the lodge almost 2 years ago, what have you done?
Well, we had this big party, the Roaring Twenties party, and then COVID hit right after that. And I really wanted to keep interacting with my community. So I had to get creative. How can we interact with the community and follow COVID rules? And so I thought, well, shoot, why don't I come up with a seed swap? We have lots of people, seed savers, lots of gardeners, farmers in the area. And Access donated about 300 packages of that on top of other people's seed saving. And they said, what about plants? So then we did a plant swap. Plant swap, I recommend it because a bunch of yard sale stuff started showing up with that. And then they said, well, produce. We have produce now. We've been growing seeds. Okay, fine. Built a produce stand for them. And then it helped the other gardeners to swap their food. It helped the poor people eat better. And they said, what about a little free food pantry? So I built this little pantry, and we were given 80 boxes of food from the Medford Food Share. It's like we're recognized as some kind of pantry now. And so we're part of that now. But before we got the free food from the Medford Food Share, the citizens of Gold Hill were supporting this. So there was 4 Facebook pages I could post to. And I said, oh, the pantry's sad today. And I show an empty picture. And they all rush over and fill it up. And I say, oh, the pantry's happy today. And they'd all be so happy, and they love their pantry and they protect it. I said, listen, we have teenagers come in the middle of the night and they're doing terrible things to this pantry. They're throwing their names and food and they're throwing it around. And okay, fine. So the citizens of Gold Hill bought cameras to watch this pantry. They love their pantry. They have it on a schedule. They say, oh, we drop by once a week and we fill this pantry up. So yeah, the pantry is the pride of Gold Hill. They own that. All I did was build the box, and I wheel food out and fill it up. But really, it belongs to them, and they're proud of it. You should hear them talk about it. So there's a couple other ideas I had. One of them was a book nook. So I found an abandoned newspaper rack, and it's over by the grocery store, and people put books in it. But another lady took that over. I said, I got too much, you do it. So you can do a book nook. And yeah, so that was it. Those are the COVID-friendly things you can do.
Well, my lodge was so inspired by your pantry that one of our members, actually, brother Steve Cook, he volunteered to build us a pantry, and he actually dropped the completed box part. Cool. It doesn't have a base yet, but he dropped the box off to the tattoo shop today. So us artist members can at some point get together and maybe have like a social distance decorating party, so we could paint the pantry up and make it all heart and hand and 3 links and stuff. And so I want to say thank you for posting so often about what you are doing for your lodge, because it's being seen. And at least in my lodge, we have picked up that idea of the little food pantry honor box, and we're excited about having that offered for our community.
You can register it with littlefreefoodpantry.org, I think it is, and register it. It'll be on a map with all the others so that people can find it.
Okay, I'm going to look that up right now.
How do you go about promoting your the activities that you're doing?
Facebook, just Facebook. There's 4 main pages for my area that people participate in, cool. And so I just post it straight from the lodge. We have a lodge page, and I'm always putting stuff on there, and people watch for it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think you really hit the nail on the head when you said the people of Gold Hill took ownership of that food pantry, because what you did, you essentially found what computer people would call the killer app, which is the absolutely essential application that makes you go, I need to do that, because you found the thing that made a project of your lodge indispensable to the community. And that is the kind of golden nugget that every lodge out there that is struggling with membership is looking for. How can we find something that's going to engage the community and raise the profile of Odd Fellowship?
Right.
And these things that you've done, the food pantry, the seed swap, the book exchange, these are all really brilliant ideas. Now, for my lodge, my associate lodge, Buckley number 75, that is a lodge that is not exactly in a farming area, but it's a small town on the plateau up against the foothills, and we have a lot of gardeners around there. For us, I think the seed swap idea would be an excellent way of getting the community involved. Now, of course, for us, it's a little bit more challenging logistically because we are in a more developed downtown. Our downtown in Buckley is actually 4 entire blocks by itself, and then we've got houses all around in the city. So we don't have quite as much leeway as you do in Gold Hill, but that is such a brilliant idea of the lodge doing something that becomes indispensable to the community. Assuming, of course, the pandemic will let up soon and let us start doing lodge activities, that's one of those ideas that I want to bring to my lodge and see if we can duplicate that.
I'll tell you what, if the next pandemic is a famine, you guys are going to have a indispensable racket going on there.
Right.
Southern Oregon is a great place for food. You got pear orchards down there. The Rogue Valley Creamery is down there.
Yes.
There's a lot of good stuff down in your part of the country.
Oregon cheese.
Oregon cheese. Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, you might not know this, Christopher, but the state of Oregon actually has some very, very fine cheese. Number 1 on that list, the one that everybody knows, of course, is Tillamook cheese, which is in the town of Tillamook on the Oregon coast. That's like kind of the popular Pacific Northwest cheese. They have a big dairy cooperative, so they do ice cream and all sorts of stuff. However, if you are in the know, if you're a native Pacific Northwesterner like myself, Tillamook ice cream is good, but there's better ice cream in Oregon, and it comes from Roseburg. It's Umpqua Dairy. Their ice cream is just amazing.
Oh.
And they've just recently started shipping it up here to Washington, so I can get some of that. They have this Oregon strawberry that's really, really good if you like a strawberry ice cream.
Who doesn't?
Exactly. So just for the record, Oregon does have some wonderful cheese producers. And boy, about, 10, 15 years ago, I did a concert tour through there. I was playing in Medford and then Grants Pass and somewhere else down in that area. I had a day off, and so we were able to do like a food tour. And we went to the Rogue Valley Creamery and tried all of their cheeses. We went to the orchard and tried some of the pears. And they have a winery, actually several wineries down there, but we went to the winery on the tour. It was fantastic.
Got around.
Yeah, Southern Oregon is a really, really great place to visit.
You'll have to come visit me.
Yeah, well, I was there last August. I drove down to Medford, and I met a guy who came up from the Sacramento area and bought a button accordion. So I actually went through there last summer, but it was a very quick trip, so I didn't really have a chance to stop and visit anybody. But getting back to what you're doing with your lodge, what kind of reaction have you had from the community? You told us that they really embraced the food pantry. Has this resulted in more membership for the lodge?
We get some inquiries. People are, yeah. Well, I don't know. It hasn't, no, not directly, but probably because of COVID, you know.
I think it really is only a matter of time before you start seeing some sort of tangible return in that regard. You know, you would assume that you would have to be. There's going to be enough people that are going to want to, you know, support what you're doing and, you know, support it to the extent where they sign themselves up for a lifetime of heavy lifting and seed swapping.
Yeah.
The important thing is you've already raised the profile of your lodge in your community. That's another one of those puzzles that a lot of lodges look at and can never seem to make the pieces fit together. You get the lodge, and inside the walls of their building, they know everything that's going on, but they never know how to interact outside the building. How can you get people out in the community to realize that Odd Fellowship is a wonderful organization? We do great things. We're very supportive of one another, and you can come and join it. How can you make that connection? And you seem to have hit on the perfect combination there in Gold Hill. Now, I know you probably don't have a whole lot of background on the lodge before you. What I know about it is there was the terrible water damage to the building from a highway construction project. A lot of litigation between, I think it was the state of Oregon and the lodge to try and resolve where the water damage came from. You know, is it the lodge's fault? Is it the state's fault, etc.? It was long and drawn out. There were not many members. The lodge was barely hanging on. And there's actually probably at least one lodge like that in every jurisdiction. Now, here in Washington,
there's a bizarre little story that goes.
Oh yeah, go, please tell us the bizarre story.
Okay. So yes, we had a little flood. The water was coming from the apartment next door, the sprinklers, and then run off from the city, and it was just flooded the building, and it stunk to high hell, and yeah, they lost members. And so the Noble Grand, like only 2 members left in the whole, or maybe he was the only member left, but he put a great big sign that says, "We're for sale, $300,000." Everybody goes, "Oh, you can't sell that. We'll join, we'll be members." And they get this whole flock of people that joined to try to save that from being sold. All of a sudden, people cared. Of course, the Grand Lodge said, "You can't sell that. You don't own that." He goes, "I know." That was a neat little trick.
And it worked.
Yeah, they got some people, and we still got people left over from that. You know, they're still here. I mean, they're older now, you know. Yeah, that was a neat little trick.
Well, we have a lodge very similar to Gold Hill here in Washington, and that's Skookumchuck number 129. And they're in the town of Bucota, which is on a side road in Thurston County that's kind of between nowhere and nowhere. And it's a town that time pretty much forgot. It was important in the 19th century, but since they closed the coal mines and the lumber camps in that part of the state, the town of Bucota faded away. So the lodge hall for Skookumchuck number 129 was falling apart. The roof was leaking so badly that water was running inside the building and pooling on the hardwood floors upstairs. So when I first joined, a little over 20 years ago, I went to my first OddFellows event on statewide level. It was down in Thurston County, and I remember people talking at that event saying, "Oh yeah, Skookumchuck is not going to last very long. they're going to give up their charter within, probably a year. Well, a bunch of people in that little town of Bucota said, we're not going to let that happen. We need this lodge. We need this building. They worked out a deal with the city of Bucota, which is like, 8 blocks long. Once you get on the other side of the railroad tracks, that is. City took over the building and renovated it and basically gave the lodge a lifetime lease. So the roof got fixed and the floors got fixed and everything got fixed up and the electrical system got redone. And through a bunch of grant money and hard work on the part of the city and the lodge, they were able to put the building together. Well, then some concerned people in the town said, hey, it looks like this is going to survive. We're going to get active in the lodge. And so little by little, the efforts were made to add another member here, another member there, and reach out to other communities. And they put on some great community activities in Bucota. They do a Santa parade with an elf handing out candy at Christmas time. And they do a craft bazaar in November where they have vendors come into the hall and people go up and they build things and sell it. They have all these kind of community engagement projects, and it has saved that lodge. Skookumchuck 129 is now one of the stable, active, functional lodges here in the jurisdiction of Washington. And it's great to see that same kind of story play out there where you're at in Gold Hill, Oregon.
Yeah. Oh, so here's something. My husband said if he had discovered OddFellows when he was in the Navy, when we were in Silverdale, Washington,
yeah,
we would have joined.
Oh,
Bremerton OddFellows is right there.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of people in the Navy.
I will definitely talk to Bremerton. When I was Grand Master a couple years ago, my Grand Marshal, Michael Shurik, was from the Bremerton Lodge, Bremerton Friendship number 145. They have done some really great work there in Bremerton. That had been one of those lodges that was hanging on with the help of 5 guys all in their 90s.
Oh my
and
gosh.
Brother Michael and Brother Greg there in the Bremerton Lodge went out and beat the bushes and rounded up enough people, not just to save the Oddfellows Lodge, but also to save the Rebecca Lodge in Bremerton as well.
That's nice.
Yeah.
I think of these lodges with the same numbers as like sister, cousin lodges, sister lodges,
Yeah.
Like, okay, so the word Skookumchuck.
Skookumchuck. It is I want to say it's a coastal Salish word that means strong or swift water. It's the name of the river that flows through that part of the county, the Skookumchuck River.
Oh, so one of the things that inspired me was the DMC, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, and the Oddfellows. Have you read that one?
Yeah.
That one talked about dingy halls, talked about fighting with each other and all this stuff. And I'm like, so I was inspired to tackle that list.
And in what ways did you tackle that list?
The decrepit halls. So we didn't have a floor, we had a subfloor. We couldn't paint it, we couldn't mop it, we couldn't sweep it, we couldn't mop it. So we painted the floor. Now it's not so decrepit. You can have weddings and not just, Western themed stuff where you're throwing peanut shells on it. So it just brought us up a notch, so we changed the lighting. We added cafe lighting, so we're not so decrepit. Our lighting is better. So when the sewing people come, they can see what they're doing.
One thing I definitely wanted to ask about was you're pretty active creatively, and you have created a number of very interesting items that have been posted. And I was wondering if you would like to discuss some of the items you have, the Oddfellow items you have created, and kind of share a little bit kind of your inspiration and kind of a little bit more about what inspired you to start making the woodworking items.
Well, I like personal challenges, and I was given this record cabinet. That was the first thing I made for the lodge, and it wasn't a record. It was a old vintage radio, and it didn't work, and it had termites, and it was neat looking. So my brother brought home a thing, the dealership. It had a TV screen, little computer, and I got that in there. And so it plays, I call it the Oddfellow propaganda machine. It plays these videos. It plays songs, it plays videos, and so I built it to set on the sidewalk at a parade. If we can't be in the parade, that's going to be in the parade, and it's going to play all this stuff, and it's going to represent us and have little pamphlets and stuff for people to take and know who we are. Even though we're doing the pancake breakfast over there, at least we can participate in some way. So I built that thing. It was so neat. You get those little, the wording, the IOF, and you drew that, right?
Yeah, the ciphers.
Right. So I cut that out with my scroll saw, and it should really fit this 1930s cabinet, this scroll work, and yeah. So that was the first thing I made, and then and I'm telling my lodge members, I said I need more wall space. I got more ideas, So I built this cabinet, and I carved these another cabinet. I carved these little the two hands shaking hands. One's blue, one's purple, because we're men and women mixed lodge, I said, and then we're like the busy bee lodge. So I carved a little bee and put that down there, and that was a couple of things I did. And then I painted these. It was so fun. I was having so much fun, because when you're doing a project for yourself, you don't, versus doing a special order and oh my God, I hope they like it, So I have a couple more projects that I want to do. One of them is I route signs. So I want to route some really intricate designs into a door. They were going to put a modern door in there, but I want to really, people to really just stand there and stare at this door,
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. So that's one of the projects. The other project I want to do is, those old record player cabinets, where you have the stereo or the record player, and you have all these choices. One of them is the button that says auxiliary, which means you can have Wi-Fi. You can Bluetooth your phone to it. So now it's a jukebox. And so I want to audify this cabinet, put some Bluetooth to it, and then you'll be able to play any songs you want through the stereo in the lodge. So that's another idea I have in my head. I love these projects. I have so much fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'll have to show you a picture when I get it all done. These ideas.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what advice do you think that you could give to another lodge to help it share the success that you've had? How do you get the ball rolling?
Well, I know I always thought the lodge looked like an empty warehouse. Don't be an empty warehouse. Get out there, sweep your sidewalk, be outside, leave the doors wide open. People wander in and ask you questions. Hang out at your lodge. Just don't let it be empty all the time. Be available. If there is represent your lodge in multi-group efforts. If you see a whole bunch of groups getting together, we have a community share group. Well, I join that. I'll be a part of that. Now you've got OddFellows. You've got a face to a name. Pick up trash. Contact your local newspaper anytime you do something good. And so we have her on speed dial. Hey, look, we got the food pantry. Well, she made an article about it, and it says the generosity of OddFellows or something like that. The seeds of generosity. That's what it was. And it's got my artwork in my pantry and talks all about it. And then I was also thinking about maybe adopt a highway, because you get to put your OddFellows on that sign.
Yeah, we have one of those for our lodge. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to do that. I want to wear an orange vest. This is IOOF on the back of it while I'm cleaning up the street. Really, really stand out. Really be out there and not be so invisible. Serve coffee at the rest areas. A lot of groups do that. And so they stand out a little bit. But rest areas, maybe pass through, people wouldn't notice. But but yeah, the adopt a highway is pretty cool. Put your name out there.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you a quick story about the OddFellows and rest areas. So that trip I mentioned earlier where I was playing down in Southern Oregon, I took a trumpet player with me on the road for that trip. And of course, being on the road, we got a lot of time to talk between gigs. So I'm telling him about the OddFellows. He says, that sounds really kind of cool. I'd like to join that. And I'm like, oh, that's great, except I don't have an application with me because, I'm in the tour van. So I'm set up for performing, not necessarily for taking in new members. So we're heading north on I-5. We get to the rest area along I-5, somewhere in the Willamette Valley, somewhere, maybe Lebanon or somewhere, north of Eugene. We're headed home. It's late in the evening. So it's about, 2:00 in the morning. Pull into the rest area to stop. And who is there handing out coffee at the rest area? But the OddFellows.
Yes.
Those in Oregon will undoubtedly know that this was past Grandmaster Alan Jackson, because he's the one who usually spearheads that whole operation with the rest area coffee in that part of Oregon. So I didn't know that at the time, but I saw, the OddFellows. So I went over there, and it's 2:00 in the morning, and I go up to the window. I'm like, hey, you're the OddFellows, right? He's like, yeah. Can I get an application? He's like, oh, yes, the OddFellows are wonderful. It's a great. I'm like, no, you don't have to explain. I'm already a member. I need an application for my friend who is with me who wants to join because I don't have any. So Brother Alan was there that night. He was kind enough to give me an application, and I was able to fill it out and then turn it in. And my friend joined after we got home. Of course, we didn't get home until 5 o'clock the next morning. It's a long drive up from Southern Oregon, but I just happened to be there on the right evening when the OddFellows were doing coffee at the rest areas, and I got the application for my friend.
At 2 a.m, no less.
Perfect. Yeah.
At 2 a.m.
And the best part about it was Brother Alan was like, oh, yes, the OddFellows are a wonderful group. I've been a member for several years. I'm like, no, you don't understand. I'm already a member.
Preach it to the choir.
Yeah. I need the application for my friend because I don't have one with me.
How random is it that they would be there and then another member would show up and ask for an application for another person?
It just goes to show you that as OddFellows, we're all over the place. We are everywhere.
Mm-hmm. We are everywhere.
Hard to find, yes, but we are there. And I think this is a good opportunity to take a quick break and hear a message from our sponsor. So we'll be right back after that with some more from Sister Stacy Thomason from Gold Hill number 129 in Oregon.
This is an actor portrayal. Hi, I'm Amanda, the brains and brawn behind Pig and a Pug, where I use only the best materials to give you the best products possible. For those that don't know, I'm based in the beautiful mountains of Montana, and right now, it's very cold outside, so this is the perfect opportunity to give you guys a little bit of a news update. I just wanted to take a quick second to announce the upcoming release of our Christmas-themed soaps that will be shipping the first week of December. These will make fantastic gifts for those you love. With 6 different custom-tailored scents, there will be something for everyone. Know any Harry Potter fans? We have a selection of soaps for both kids and adults that will be shipping this coming week. We are also planning some Harry Potter-related giveaways for the launch, so make sure you get involved. We also have a variety of 8-ounce scented candles, sugar scrubs, and bath bombs. If this sounds up your or someone you know's alley, look us up on Facebook and on Etsy. Just search Pig and a Pug. Did you get that? Pig and a Pug. Also, as a special thank you for your support, we are offering all listeners of the Three Links Oddcast a special coupon code for 24% off your order. Just use the code THANKYOU24 at checkout. And I'll say it again, Pig and a Pug.
All right, we are back. We're talking with Sister Stacy Thomason from Gold Hill Lodge number 129 in the jurisdiction of Oregon. And Sister Stacy, I understand that you have somewhat of a musical background that you've brought to the lodge. As the Sovereign Grand Musician, I heartily approve of that. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I joined OddFellows, and we would go through the meeting, and we'd hit the music section of it, and then we'd just skip over it like it didn't exist. And I'm like, well, what is that? And so I started looking them up. I started writing the sheet music for it. And of course, we had a little turmoil in our lodge, and I found that the lyrics to the songs really helped to have us all sing together and sing those words together about fraternal, order and all that. So, and I also found the music for the song in initiation, which you think it was in a minor key, and it's not. It's in a major key, but I sing it in a minor key anyway. To Rose, Rose, Rose. And yeah, so it's nice to add back the depth of the music. There's so many things that have been lost, and we need to add those things back in. It's really important.
I agree with that. I have always said that one of the most important things that we do in opening and closing a lodge and doing any kind of ceremonial or ritual work is to sing together. You don't have to be good at singing, because it's not about giving a concert. It is about bringing everyone together and literally creating the harmony that we want to exist in our lodges. That's why the singing is such an important component. I'm always a little bit disappointed when I visit lodges and they're like, oh, we just skip over that part. I'm like, no, I'm here tonight. I will play it for you. You will be able to hear what it sounds like, and you can enrich the experience of your lodge by adding that music. One little tangent here. I have found that for the newer members, the people who've joined recently, and especially the younger members, they really like the ritual, the pageantry, all of the things that make a meeting special. They like the collar regalia better than the chains. They like putting on the robes and doing the degree work. They like the singing. They don't see it as an extra 3 minutes that keeps us away from arguing about the bills, like some of the older, longer term members. They see it as something really important and really essential and elemental to what they're doing in Odd Fellowship. And I agree with that. One of the highlights of my year as Grand Master a couple years ago was visiting the lodge in Hunters, Washington, which is a really tiny little town built in a gulch up above the Columbia River in north central Washington. And they have a piano. And so they said, Grand Master, would you please play the opening and closing odes for us? I said, of course, I would be honored to. And one of the members of that lodge who had recently joined said, oh, there's music? I didn't know that. I'm a piano player. Show me how to do it. And so I got to teach this lodge musician how to play the songs. And she was so excited. The music just adds so much to the experience. People do enough boring business meetings in their daily lives. We don't need to turn Odd Fellowship into another boring business meeting for them to halfway pay attention to. If anything, we need to turn Odd Fellowship into a special, engaging experience that will really get those people dedicated and say, I want to be a part of this.
I feel like I've been a slacker in my lodge because we don't do the opening and closing odes. And now I feel like this is something we need to really make an effort to bring back.
You play an instrument?
I play several instruments poorly, but I'm waiting for Toby.
Yeah, I'm working on the new recordings of the odes. So once those are all done, then you can have those and you can play them in your lodge.
Yay.
Oh, very good.
So I have a question for you, Stacy. As a newer member, have you gotten around to any of the other lodges in your district or region? Have you visited with any of those lodges or members?
I've been to Grants Pass. I've been to Central Point. I've been to Jackson. I've been to Jacksonville. I've been up to Peninsula Lodge. I get the tour. I say, hey, give me the tour. Everybody's happy to give me the tour. Anybody comes to me, I'll give you a tour. I love to show off my lodge, you know. And it's kind of like collecting them. And so I was in Eugene, and I didn't have time, but I wanted to see the Eugene Lodge. You know, I mean, if I'm in a town, I've been to Wairika Lodge. Yeah, if I'm in a town, there's an OddFellows, I want to try and get a tour, because you get to see how they set things up. You get to see, you know, what's there, and you know, it's good. It's good to visit the lodges, and that's that lodge pride, you know. So
Love it.
Well, I can tell you, I've visited the lodge in Eugene. It's Spencer Butte number 9. They have a gigantic building just south of downtown Eugene.
oh,
It was actually built in the 1960s. They were one of the lodges that got to rebuild in the 60s. And I got the tour. I went there for a meeting. I got the tour. It was fantastic. The lodge room can probably accommodate 300 people easily, because that used to be a huge lodge. The night I was there were only 6 members present and myself as a visitor. But they have a wonderful commercial kitchen, big dining room with huge picture windows that overlooks the park. And they have
nice.
these men's and women's lounges, because in those days, the big lodges were also social hubs. So, you know, university professors, businessmen, people like that, they would go down to the OddFellows hall on their lunch and meet with people. So they have these men's and women's lounges in that hall that look like they were perfectly preserved in 1967, with the furniture, the big, you know, tube TV, the big console ones, you know, with the dark walnut cabinets and the orange and brown plaid couches. And it is like taking a trip back 60 years to go visit that lodge. It is so cool and so amazing. Next time you're in Eugene, you definitely have to visit Spencer Butte number 9.
Sounds like the ultimate time capsule.
Yeah.
It is. It's like they captured Odd Fellowship at the very peak and then saved it like that.
It's on my bucket list now.
So now what they need is everybody listening to this in Eugene, go join the lodge and preserve it in that beautiful, pristine state, because it's absolutely wonderful.
Like the 150th anniversary happened, and we're gonna crystallize it. It's gonna be 1969
exactly. That is
forever.
exactly what it looks like in there. I looked in that room, and my first thought was, wow, this is exactly the way my grandmother would have wanted to decorate her house. It's perfect.
It's perfect. I'll take it.
Yeah, it's like somebody opened up the Montgomery Ward's catalog in 1967 and said, yeah, just give me one of everything. You know, the lounge set, I'll take that. The end tables, the lamps with the rippled shades and the fringe, I'll take 2 of those. The whole thing, it is so beautiful in that lodge, because the meeting hall, of course, it's, you know, classic OddFellows Lodge with the benches and then rows of chairs in front, and it's dark in there, and they have lights above the stations, beautifully ornately carved officer stations. It's Spencer Butte number 9 in Eugene, Oregon is a completely wonderful experience. You absolutely go visit that lodge.
That
I'll
sounds
have to.
awesome.
My daughter lives in Springfield. So.
And you know, right in that area, they have a whole bunch of really cool lodges. I've not visited the lodge in Springfield, but I've heard from several Oregonians who have. That is a great lodge to visit. And then the lodge just south of Eugene in Cottage Grove, they have a really cool building right next to the river. They've got a radio station downstairs. And so that's another really great lodge to visit. And let me just say, as a Washingtonian, it pains me to say this a little bit, but Oregon has done a fantastic job in supporting their lodges. The Grand Lodge gives out so much help and support to lodges that need it. They really make a wonderful effort in your jurisdiction to support the lodges and help them be successful.
Oregon's got their stuff together.
They do. They do. Ron Coons, he runs a very tight ship there in Oregon.
It's all that fancy strawberry ice cream.
Yeah, he communicates really well.
Yes. And the cheese, the wonderful cheese.
I actually have a bunch of refrigerator magnets from Tillamook, Oregon on my refrigerator, believe it or not.
I will believe that. I think you can get Tillamook dairy products in Western Montana.
You can, but we actually had a lodge member go to Tillamook, Oregon on vacation a couple years ago, and they brought me back a handful of magnets because everyone knows that I collect magnets.
Yeah. And the nice thing is, if you ever go to Tillamook and take the tour, you get free ice cream at the end. So one of my friend's wives was super obsessed with this, and she's like, we have to go down to Oregon. We have to go to Tillamook and do the tour because we get free ice cream. And he just said to her, you know what, Mary, we could save the 4.5-hour trip to the Oregon coast and just buy ice cream for $5 here and not spend all day to get free ice cream. Yeah, but you don't understand. It's free. He's like, it's not really free if we're driving 9 hours total to get it.
It costs $60 in gas for that free ice cream.
I know. But the Oregon coast is super cool, and I do recommend it for anybody. If you're traveling through Oregon, make sure you go check out the coast. Go to Seaside, Lincoln City, and Newport, Waldport, all the cool stuff. Florence, of course. Got to mention Florence because they have the Oregon Dunes and the Oddfellows Park in Florence, which is the only private access to the Oregon Dunes. Take that, Freemasons.
That's one of the perks.
Yeah, you may have a worldwide conspiracy, but you don't have your own park on the Oregon Dunes, do ya?
Not may have a conspiracy. They do. They most certainly do have a conspiracy. Everyone knows about the Denver airport gimmick.
Oh, now let's not bring that up again.
I have done nothing but read about it obsessively since he brought it up. I can prove it.
Oh, no, I believe you, brother. I completely believe you. All right. So, Sister Stacy, is there anything else you would like to share with the wider world of Odd Fellowship?
I guess advice, if you want more people to come to meetings, offer pie at the end.
Amen.
That's it.
Which brings us to our next segment. What kind of pie?
What kind of pie brings them in? Well,
yeah,
a fruit pie, some kind of cream pie, lemon custard, and just a couple of different kinds of pie and coffee, and people get excited to come to meetings because there's a little dessert at the end, a little socialization.
That's interesting.
Instead of just ending the meeting, everybody walk out the door. Let's hang out and have some pie.
See, that's the way to do it. So that's so at most lodges, when they do the dinner beforehand, they have their dessert as well. So then there's no incentive to stay for the meeting. You've already had your world famous Washington rhubarb pie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have dinner. We just have pie.
What is the town that has the famous rhubarb pies near you?
Sumner.
That's it. Yeah. Sumner and its famous rhubarb pies. A lodge there wouldn't survive because everyone would leave right after the pie.
That's right. And you know what, Christopher? History bears that out. Sumner Lodge 42 no longer exists. And why? They had pie before the meetings. Yeah. Pie before the meetings. If you're going to do that, just give up your charter and save the Grand Lodge the expense of driving down from Buckley to pick it up.
Yeah.
You save the pie till after the meeting. That way people show up.
That must be part of that unwritten work. The pie, save the pie to the end of the meeting.
It's penciled in there.
It's just written in the Noble Grand's copy up there at the podium. Now, for my money, my favorite pie is a good chocolate cream. There are many wonderful kinds of pies. And as a Sovereign Grand Lodge officer, I should not pick a favorite because at the Sovereign Grand Lodge, we love all pies equally. However, personally, I do have to give it up for the chocolate cream. What about you, Ainsley?
I would probably be a coconut cream.
It's a solid choice. Christopher?
I'm not really a pie person, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
I like a good bit of cake. Cake is all right. Pie, I like pie. I'll tell you what. Actually, you know what? Edit all this out.
No one will ever hear it.
You know what my favorite kind of pie is?
What?
Chicken pot.
Oh, chicken pot pie.
Oh,
Yeah. See, that's the thing. You have a nice big dinner, like maybe some beef stroganoff or something. You want to impress the ladies afterwards. You say, "Hey, I made dessert. I hope you like pie. It's probably a little bit more filling than you were hoping for, but I made you pie." That's how you get people in. Chicken pot pie.
Gosh.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chicken pot pie.
And Stacy, how about you? What's your preferred pie?
Like a coconut cream pie.
Oh,
Or a banana. Banana
Oh.
everybody's going with the cream pies. I like this. Even though you're in fruit country there in Southern Oregon, you should be picking like a peach pie or maybe a pear tart or something like that, given all the orchards around you. But I like the cream pies myself, so I got to approve that one. So Ainsley, why don't you give us the Lodge shout out for this episode? This is kind of a unique one.
Today, our lodge shout out is Mackinac Lodge 380 in New Bloomfield, Pennsylvania. Our brother Seth Anthony, he is looking for help in reinvigorating the lodge in New Bloomfield and bringing them back from the brink. They are on the verge of losing this lodge. They do not want to close. They are in Perry County, Pennsylvania, and they need 5 interested people to help continue the work of this lodge, which has existed for 170 years. And anybody who is interested can contact the Grand Secretary of Pennsylvania, Justin Bailey, at their website is glpaIOOF.org. Once again, that's Grand Lodge of PA is glpaIOOF.org. And you could message them, and if you're interested in the New Bloomfield area of Pennsylvania.
That's fantastic. Usually when we do a lodge shout out, it's to recognize something great that a lodge has done. In this case, we are putting out the beacon to save this lodge. If we can do it, we want to help out there in Pennsylvania because they have some fantastic Oddfellows in the Keystone State. So we want to see this lodge get restocked with all wonderful new members and do some great things. So New Bloomfield, Pennsylvania, Mackinac number 380. If you're out there listening and you're thinking, hey, I want to be a part of that, contact the Grand Lodge of Pennsylvania at the website that Ainsley gave out. So now we can move on and do the Oddpodge. This is the segment where we share something. It doesn't necessarily have to be about Odd Fellowship, could be about our lives, personalities, just anything we want to share. It's like good of the order at the end of a lodge meeting. So Sister Stacy, since you were kind enough to join us as a guest, why don't you go first? What would you like to share?
Uh-oh, I already said the pie thing. So I don't know if this is funny. You can edit it out if it's terrible.
I can.
My husband. Okay, so my husband was interviewed, and of course they brought the most senior members out, lined them up to interview my husband, and his coworkers, and they're like, "Are you a plumber? Do you know a plumber?" And when they left, they just asked questions like that. And then when they left the meeting, they said it felt like an AARP meeting. Because there's so much of seniors. They're 50 years old, and they go, yeah, that wasn't funny. Edit that out.
Okay,
take it away.
Yeah, I've got a lot of editing to do this episode.
No, that was great. Keep it in.
All right, Chris, do you have anything, Godpodge?
This is just a personal tip from me to anyone that wants to hear this. I'm not here to brag. I'm just here to teach people one of the amazing things that I have learned in my 39 years on this earth, right?
Yeah.
So I am a big fan of snacks, as all of you know. And a few months ago, I stumbled upon this snack and it changed my life. Everything bagel flavored cashews.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
This could be the biggest nut news since Sriracha almonds.
I'm just doing what I can to give back to humanity for all the things that I've taken.
Wow, you're like the Mother Teresa of snack food, Christopher.
Is there a specific brand that this magic cashew is hailed under?
So there's actually a bunch of them. I did a quick little Google search trying to find some, and I actually found that there are quite a few brands. So it really shouldn't be that hard to figure it out.
Fantastic.
Yeah, but it sounds great, doesn't it?
It does.
And, with the pandemic going on, we're all eating a bunch of crap that we don't need to be eating. Eat some cashews. They're good for you. And then go for a hike.
Yeah.
Well, you're not just a scholar, you're also a humanitarian. Proud to have you as a brother.
Cool. I appreciate your candor.
Well, I'll go next for the Odd Podge. I want to brag a little bit about my family. Now, because of the pandemic, we haven't been able to meet in our associate lodge in Buckley for the last couple of months. The last meeting that we actually had was our election of officers, which was the first meeting of November. So since that time, we haven't been able to go back, finish out the rest of the term, and we have not been able to install our new officers. But I'm very proud to share that my wife is going to be the past grand of the lodge. She's finishing her term as noble grand. My niece is our secretary-elect, and my daughter is our noble grand-elect. So I will be able to spend my time at lodge meetings as her left supporter, sitting around and basically doing nothing more than playing the piano a couple times a night, which, as someone who's been very involved at a high level in Odd Fellowship, it will be nice to have a low-stress job, and even nicer that Odd Fellowship has become such a wonderful place for the members of my family. I bought some of those Luke Westman OddFellows t-shirts
cool.
At Christmas and gave out to the family, and they just love them. They wear them all the time. So that's my Odd Podge, just bragging about the family and how well they're doing in the lodge and how much the lodge is doing for them.
Shout out to Luke Westman for making those sick shirts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bought two. I bought one for me and one for Tosh, our noble grand.
Cool.
Yeah,
she wore hers today at the shop. Yeah,
it's really great. We may not have a whole lot of super famous members in the Odd Fellows, but we've got some really great tattoo artists. I can say that about Odd Fellowship.
He's an incredibly symmetrical individual too.
Yeah, so I've heard.
Yeah, gotta look at a picture of that guy. He's symmetrical.
Yeah, I was going to say, for those who don't know who Luke Westman is, he's a pretty big name tattoo artist out of, I believe, L.A.
Yeah.
And he's a Freemason, and he's mostly known for being a Freemason on the fraternal end of things. He's got a sort of a side brand called, I think it's like Lost Art of the Gentleman, I believe. It's kind of a Freemason vibe stuff. But he's also an Odd Fellow. I believe he's a member at Waxa 80 out of Waxahachie with Oliver Peck. And he'll come out every year and do the Elm Street tattoo fundraiser. So he does do some Odd Fellow stuff, even though he's not a regular meeting attending member. He does do things on behalf of the order. And yeah, his shirts are awesome. So I'll pick up with my Odd Podge. So many of you may or may not know of our kind of call to action catchphrase, ask me, I may know. I took it upon myself to make a very simple website that's just a link list of Oddfellow resources for anybody who's interested in learning more about Odd Fellowship. And it's just literally just a list of links, and it's kind of somewhat categorized. And so if you're looking to learn more, now you could visit or send all your friends to askmeimay.know.com.
Wonderful.
And yeah, so it hasn't really gotten too much action yet. I haven't really promoted it too heavily yet. But yeah, it's just a little easy resource guide for anybody interested in learning more about the Oddfellows. AskMeImayKnow.com.
That's fantastic. We need stuff like that. Anything we can do to punch up the communication for Odd Fellowship is very, very important, because nobody's going to join if they don't know we exist.
Precisely.
Well, let's give a little promo for our next episode. We are going to have Brother Seth Anthony on with us, and he's going to be talking about appendant bodies for Oddfellows. Everybody's familiar with Masons and knows that they can join things like York Rite, Scottish Rite, Shrine, the White Shrine, Amaranth, a whole bunch of other appendant bodies for Masonry. Oddfellows are not as aware of some of the special stuff that we can do, because we can join things like the Muscovites and Amos. So we're going to find out about all of those fun appendant bodies for Oddfellows on our next episode.
Wear your fez.
That's right. It's fez time. Everybody get your fez out. And all of those of you out there in the non-Oddfellows listening world who think, wow, fezzes are really cool. If you want the real thing, join a fraternal order. You can hit us up at the Three Links Oddcast at threelinksoddcast.com. That's the word 3 written out. Or you can email us at 3, the number 3 in this case, linksoddcast@gmail.com. So if you want to join the Oddfellows and get yourself one of those cool fezzes, we can try and get you in touch with a lodge. We have done it so far. We got Matt in Colorado into a lodge. So we can do that. We can connect you with a lodge somewhere. And then next episode, we talk to Seth Anthony. He's going to tell us all about appendant bodies for Oddfellows. Well, Sister Stacy, on behalf of all of us here at the Three Links Oddcast, we want to thank you so much for all of your efforts to help revitalize the lodge in Gold Hill, and also for coming on and sharing all of your experience with all of us here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And with that, we will close out and say thank you for listening, everyone. Bye-bye.